Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today, I am talking about some coaching news in the world of sports, and that'd be the Florida Gators hiring Billy Napier to be their next head coach. Now, I am a Gators fan, so I'm a little bit biased when it comes to the Gators. I look at them differently than I would other programs and all that. With how they've gone this season, I was expecting a bit of a drop-off. When you lose Kyle Pitts, you lose Kyle Trask, you lose Trayvon Grimes, you lose all of this offensive talent, and you lost some defensive guys. The defense wasn't good last year, and I really wasn't expecting a major rebound this year, but I was expecting the offense to be good. At moments, the defense has been really good, but the offense has vanished. At moments, the offense has been really good, but the defense has vanished. They've not been able to put those two things together. So that's why Mullen eventually got let go. He had some issues recruiting players in Florida, which played a big factor in keeping his job. When you can't recruit your home state, you have issues. That's why I think it's so key to hire Billy Napier with what they did. Billy Napier, since going to the Sun Belt, since going to the Raging Cajun, he has had the number one recruiting class for the Sun Belt Conference in 2019, 2020, and 2021. It'll be interesting to see how many people stay with that with him leaving for 2021. But as it stands right now, he has the best recruiting class in the Sun Belt. Now, I know you're probably wondering, it's the Sun Belt. It's not going to translate to the SEC as well as, well, if it was like Big 12 over or a Power 5 conference. I disagree that it doesn't translate over because Billy Napier has proven he likes to recruit. In the 4 years he spent at Louisiana, he recruited hard. And that's something he gets from where he's from. He's from the Nick Saban coaching tree. He is from that 2015 team that was loaded with coaching staff. Nick Saban, Mario Cristobal, Kirby Smart, and Billy Napier. And Mel Tucker as the defensive backs coach. Those are guys who can recruit. They have recruited their areas well. Kirby Smart has recruited the SEC area well. Nick Saban, he can go anywhere and get any player he wants. He's Nick Saban. Mel Tucker has recruited his area well. Mario Cristobal is probably the best recruiter on the West Coast that's been there. Lincoln Riley going over there, that may be a different story now. But entering today, he was the best recruiter. So, you look at it like this. Billy Napier understands he needs to recruit at the Power 5 level to get these guys. And he has done that at Louisiana. Much smaller scale, but I believe it can translate. Because recruiting, it can all stay the same. It's a very simple formula. You got to build relationships with the players and the high school coaches. Something the Gators coaches have struggled with. Jim McElwain, there's been stuff that he wasn't the best guy to get along with. Dan Mullen, he was not the best guy to get along with for a lot of high school coaches you've seen. So you look at it like this. Billy Napier knows how to recruit. He's coming in a program that's desperate for consistency. That's desperate for recruiting at a good level. The Gators have not had a really good recruiter since Urban Meyer. Now, they had one really good class with Will Munchak, but since then, it has been downhill. And when you're in Florida, the cream of the crop of talent, really, you need to get those recruits to stay home. When you have Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, all these big-time schools, Clemson, when you got these big-time schools coming in and stealing your guys, you have a problem. You need to control your backyard. That's something I think Billy Napier can do. And let's also not go away from his coaching accolades. And it is the Sun Belt, I understand. But he was the Sun Belt West Division champion 4 times. He is playing, he's still coaching. He will coach for them Saturday against Appalachia State for their final game. He's going to be there for the Sun Belt Championship. It would be his second Sun Belt Championship. He won it last year, but this would be his first conference championship game win. Due to COVID, they didn't have it. And that's another thing to keep in mind. He won a conference in a COVID year. COVID year has just thrown everything for a loop. The fact he could get consistency through his players throughout that year is a very good thing and something Florida has struggled with. Because you look at after Florida has a loss, they tend to fall off. Something we saw. Alabama, they have a good rebound game against Tennessee. Then they lose Kentucky, and then the snowball just keeps on going downhill. It could not stop. Florida needs to find consistency, and I believe Billy Napier can bring that. Now, the other big coach news of the day is Lincoln Riley to USC, which put my jaw on the floor. I was shocked. I was befuddled, actually, because I didn't think he was going to leave Oklahoma. But I thought about it somewhat. And as shocked as I was when it first was announced, I then started to realize this was something that was going to happen. Lincoln Riley was going to leave Oklahoma soon. He was going to do it eventually. I thought it'd be for the NFL, but it's for USC. And why does it make sense for USC instead of the NFL? Well, there's a couple reasons. Number one, he can win at the college level. We don't know if he can win the NFL level. We all think he can. He's a very good coach, but we don't know for certain. Number two, Oklahoma going to the SEC was not something Lincoln Riley really was interested in, doesn't look like. Because LSU offered him the job, and he flat out said, I'm not going to be the next head coach at LSU. Which makes me think he knows his system's not really built for SEC conference games every single week. He's not afraid to play them once a year. He's not afraid to play them in college football playoffs. But every single week, he does not like that odds. Because when you go from playing a Georgia to an Alabama to an LSU to a Florida to an Auburn, he's looking at his Oklahoma program and he's thinking, I may have the 5-star outside talent. I may have the best receivers. I may have the best quarterback. I may have the best cornerbacks. I may have the best safeties. But I won't have the best trenches play. And that's a big thing when it goes to the SEC conference games, because you look at the teams who have dominated the SEC for years. Alabama, they dominate the trenches. Georgia, they dominate the trenches. When Florida's been really good, they've dominated the trenches. When Auburn's been good, they've dominated the trenches. A big thing in the SEC is winning up front. Now, Lincoln Riley has proved he can have very good O-lines. He can have very good O-lines at Oklahoma. But the D-lines have never been that great. They've been good. They've had some really good seasons, but they've never been SEC great. They're not on par with an Alabama or a Georgia. So when we bring all that into conversation, we got to think, well, would you rather play the SEC once a year or twice if you make the college football playoffs? And if you go on a 2-game run, you win it. You're the national champion. Or would you rather go to war with that conference every single week for 8 to 9 weeks? Your odds aren't as good. So this is a smart move by Lincoln Riley, in my opinion, because he's going to a weaker conference, because the Pac-12 has not been a great conference since USC's dominance. So when we take that into consideration, who is their biggest challenge on the West Coast for recruiting? I'm not talking for schools like Alabama who come over and get recruits from California. I'm talking just West Coast in general. What's a college there that's his biggest threat? Oregon with Mario Cristobal. Mario Cristobal is from the Nick Saban tree. He is a great recruiter. He likes offensive line play. He likes defensive line play. His best player he got in Southern California. He likes to recruit. And that's a big thing USC has to compete with. Well, let's go get a guy who has recruited Southern California great, and he's not been here. Lincoln Riley has been getting 5-star guys from Los Angeles, that area, for as long as he's been a head coach, really. Great quarterbacks, college recruits, quarterbacks have gone to him. Transfers have gone to him. Let's look at who he's had. He's had Baker Mayfield. He's had Jalen Hurts. He has had Kyler Murray. And you look, Spencer Rattler, I don't think he's that great, but he's a good college quarterback. Caleb Williams, as a freshman, that dude looks like a superstar in the making. So he has the talent. He knows how to do the quarterback play. Well, let's see. What does USC have? They got a very good young quarterback in Jackson Dart that he can work with, and he knows that. So what else does USC have to do? Well, they have to recruit. They have to put talent around Jackson Dart. Before the hiring, I think I saw USC was 66 in recruiting. USC. That is bad. When you look at the big name programs, Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia, they're at the top. Ohio State, Michigan, they're at the top. USC is considered a great program. When it's good, it's one of the best jobs in college. Then how come you can't get recruits to come there? Well, it's simple. These great coaches who have great programs, who are consistently great, are coming in and stealing those players. So USC stole one of those programs' head coach. And what does this mean for USC's future? Well, I don't expect them to turn around year one instantly. I expect Oregon to win the Pac-12 for 2 more years. Because I think Mario Cristobal is a good recruiter that can go head-to-head with Lincoln Riley, and he can win some of those battles. I think Oregon will win the Pac-12 for the next 2 years. After that, I don't know. And listen, I'm talking about Oregon as much as possible, but we also have to look at Utah. They've been consistently good. Washington, when they get the recruits, they can go. Look at what Chris Peterson had in the college football playoffs a couple years. They're looking for a new head coach. They may be looking for a splash. Time will tell with that. UCLA's got Chip Kelly. So you look at these guys who are on the second tier of teams. I'd put, and this recruiting-wise, I'd put Utah, Washington, UCLA, and Stanford on that second tier. Third tier, the up and rising programs. In Oregon State, which has been getting better under their head coach. A Washington State who just had a great run to finish the season with their intern coach, who is now their head coach. So when we bring all those into fact, USC was probably in the 3rd to 4th tier, possibly, with how they've been recruiting 66. Now with Lincoln Riley, you're back to the 1st tier. You're back to where you were as being a desirable program to go to for young players. You got yourself your next Pete Carroll. Now, what does this mean for Lincoln Riley in the future? Well, I think we see a possible NFL jump to him in the next 5 to 10 years, I would say. I think he's going to be there for a couple years. I don't think he's going to leave as soon as he can. I think he wants to win a national championship. I think he wants to have a great success at USC. Because look at Pete Carroll. He's had great success in Seattle. And even though they've kind of fallen off a bit, he will always be remembered as a championship winning coach. Urban Meyer, he's struggling in Jacksonville. But we all know if he decides to leave Jacksonville or if he gets fired, he can leave and go back to college because he's a championship college coach. Lincoln Riley knows if he wins some championships and he goes to the NFL and he fails in the NFL, he can come back to college immediately and get another great job. Chip Kelly never won a championship. Went to the NFL, had one good year, and the rest were awful. Now he's back in college. He got another job. So I think we see a 5 to 10 year span of Lincoln Riley keeping USC great, going for championships, then he jumps to the NFL. And where does that leave USC? Time will tell. But this hire is great for them as a program for the future and the present. Now let's talk about Oklahoma and kind of what their future looks like for their football program. And currently, it's not looking the brightest, even though it should turn around. It's Oklahoma, but they were not prepared for Lincoln Riley to leave for USC. It's very clear with what's gone on. Asking Bob Stoops to be the intern head coach, not even someone from Lincoln Riley's staff that was there this past year, but let alone they're losing a lot of guys from Riley's staff that are following him to USC. So Bob Stoops will be the intern. I don't see him coming back and being the head coach. I think he's done with that. He works with Fox now. He has a good gig there being a commentator, broadcaster, analyst, whatever you want to call it. He's got a good job there. So what do we need to look at for Oklahoma? Well, they need someone who can kind of translate them to the SEC. I think there are two names that go well here. One is well known, the other I don't think has been mentioned yet, but should be. I'll start off with the well-known one, Brent Venables. He should be the guy that's leading the pack for Oklahoma, but he may not accept the job because he's turned down many head coaching jobs. But this is someone who has previous ties at Oklahoma. He started coaching there in '99 and coached all the way to 2011 before leaving for Clemson. I mean, he's done a great job at Clemson. He has put many guys in the NFL. He has done a great job recruiting to get many guys that are NFL talent. They've won many national championships. He has done a great job at Clemson. I think he'd be a home run hire for Oklahoma if they were able to get him. Now, who's the other name that isn't brought up? Well, I think it's Ed Orgeron, and I know that's someone who really no one's thinking about here, but I believe it makes sense. Ed Orgeron won a national championship with LSU recently. He knows the SEC well, so it's not like you get this guy who's coming in out of nowhere who doesn't know the SEC, that doesn't know how to recruit those areas. Ed Orgeron does. He has had very good recruiting classes. He's recruited LSU very well. He's recruited the southern areas very well. He knows his areas. He has those relationships. He has those connections with the coaches to kind of bring those guys to Oklahoma. And I think that'd be very key for Oklahoma entering the SEC. So let's look at it like this. When you got these two teams going, the SEC and Texas and Oklahoma, who do you trust more? Oklahoma that just went 10-2. Mind you, they just lost their head coach at USC, but they can bring in someone who could recruit the areas very well in Ed Orgeron, or a Texas team that just went 5-7 with Steve Sarkisian kind of being the unproven head coach. And I know a lot of people are big fans of Sark. I'm not one of them. So I look at Oklahoma entering the SEC, and they need someone who can recruit the South very well. I think Ed Orgeron and Brent Venables are the two top choices to make sure they would be able to recruit it very well. Now, let's talk about the breaking news. Brian Kelly to LSU. And while I'm recording this literally just broke. I had recorded something earlier to talk about the LSU job and all that, and I doubt I'll keep it in. That's probably going to go to the garbage can now. So, Brian Kelly to LSU. What are my thoughts? Well, I don't like it. Simple as that. I don't think this is a good move for Brian Kelly or LSU. Brian Kelly had a good job being at Notre Dame. And why is that? Well, it's simple. Notre Dame is not a elite program in my mind anymore. It's an elite name. People know who the Fighting Irish are, but when they play against teams who are above them, they get blown out. Like, legit. The one thing I don't want to see this year is Notre Dame making the college football playoffs, because I have no interest to watch them in that game at all. So I look at it like this. Well, you can make the excuse, he's got to recruit guys who have 4.0 GPAs. They have to be so smart, so smart. Here's with what a lot of people don't get about college football anymore. A lot of these kids, they are that smart. They just don't want to go to Notre Dame. They want to go to a school that will win a championship. Alabama, you're going to win a championship. Texas A&M, they have currently the best recruiting class. Looks like they might be building a championship team there. Oregon with Mario Cristobal, they've been getting those recruits in. They are better than Notre Dame. If we went down all the top 25 teams, you'd probably end up putting Notre Dame outside the top 20. Because their best win this year is against Wisconsin. Their best loss is to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati pretty much beat them up that game. So when a group of 5 team is their best game that they got beaten up in, it kind of shows you where that program's at. And let's not forget, Brian Kelly is not the great head coach everyone makes him out to be. He's not. He has had his struggles at Notre Dame. And where you can make your own schedule, and it's typically very easy, he's had some really, really bad seasons. You don't get those cupcakes in the SEC. You don't get those armies, those navies that you can beat up on because you're Notre Dame. You get Alabama. You get Auburn. You get Texas A&M. These are just the teams he's going to have to face next year, guaranteed. We're not talking about a Florida where he's going to have to play. They'll eventually have to play Georgia. You're going to have to look at them being an Ole Miss. Do you think they're going to beat them? No. This is a bad move for both sides, in my opinion. And the reason why it's bad is because Scott Woodrow wanted to go big game hunting. And man, he got a big fish. But I've been fishing in Mexico before. One day with my family, we caught a bunch of fish. And they were bonito fish. Well, we asked the locals how to cook them. We asked, how do you make them? And they were like, ugh. They wouldn't give you an answer. And we caught a lot of fish. Some of them were really big fish. But you tasted them and they were horrible. Sometimes going for the big fish, going fishing, you got to take the ones that you can get. The good ones that you know are good. Billy Napier was in your own backyard. You let him go to Florida. So if he turns that program around and you are struggling, that's bad on you. Dave Aranda, who this week has Baylor in a conference championship game, makes perfect sense for LSU. He was your defensive coordinator when you won the national championship. Oh, you don't even call him? You don't even call to see, hey, how's it going? How's the family? No, you went big game hunting. You went for the big fish. And you did not get a good one. You did not get a good one that's going to fit in with the SEC. Brian Kelly's not going to work in the SEC. I'm saying that now. In 3 years, he's gone. And you can say, oh, you're overreacting. No. Most coaches, I will be like, I don't know. This one, I know for certain, is not going to go well. LSU had a chance to rebuild his program. Dave Aranda, I think, would have probably been the best choice for them. They let him walk. Billy Napier, in your own backyard, you let him go to Florida. What happens in 3 years from now? Baylor and Florida are these consistently really good teams that are going to New Year's Six Bowls, and you are struggling. You are, with what I think you're going to be, the next USC. After Pete Carroll left, mediocrity. That's where LSU is headed right now. They're headed straight to mediocrity, and I hope you enjoy it, because you're going to be there for a while. Real quick, before I get into the talk about who's going to win their conference championship and all that, I want to talk about a game from this weekend that was just awesome. And that was Bedlam. Oklahoma State. That was a fun game to watch. It was exciting. It had a good offense play at some moments. It had great defensive plays at some moments. And that was Lincoln Riley's last game as the head coach of Oklahoma, which, if you told me before the game, I would not have believed you. But here we are, and man, it was a great game, and you look at with where Oklahoma State is at now. They're in a position to go to the college football playoffs after beating Oklahoma. They beat Baylor, and Alabama loses to Georgia. They have a pretty good case to jump Notre Dame and make it into that playoffs. So here's how I'm going to look at this past game is Oklahoma's defense was really good. And same with Oklahoma State's in the second half. First half, it was a bit more bedlam. It was back and forth, some offense points. Oklahoma State got a big kickoff return for a touchdown. And it was all even at half. But then, after halftime, we saw a couple things happen bad for Oklahoma State. The safety that put Oklahoma up 26-24. Then the muff punt for a touchdown that put Oklahoma up 33-24. Then a missed kick, a pick, a lot of stuff happened. And then all of a sudden, Oklahoma State scores a touchdown. It's now 33-31. And then Oklahoma State scores again. Now, after a questionable no call on the unsportsmanlike conduct on, I believe it was number 16, Oklahoma State, kind of finishing the play a little late on the Oklahoma running back, could have been called, probably should have been called, was no called. Oklahoma State then gets a touchdown. They go for 2 to make it 39-33, but they don't get it, so it's 37-33. Oklahoma needs a touchdown. On Oklahoma's final drive, a great play by Caleb Williams to get them position, and then follows up with a questionable no-call and pass interference in the end zone. And that had people saying, well, this is the Big 12 game back in Oklahoma for leaving for the SEC, and I don't believe that. I don't believe that they would do that. The allegations and lawsuits that would come out of that, if that were to happen, would be enormous. That's not something a conference would risk. Now, they're happy Oklahoma State won, most likely. They're really happy that Oklahoma or Texas is not in the Big 12 conference. They're probably celebrating that Texas has had this bad of a season. But that's not why Oklahoma lost this game. They lost it because they made some bad errors. They muffed a punt that Oklahoma State punted, and that's what gave Oklahoma State the game-winning touchdown. There was stuff that happened that Oklahoma messed up, and you can't blame officials for everything. One of my things I hate the most is when people go, well, it's the officials, that's why we lost. Officials. My number one rule is, if you are put in a position to blame the officials for losing, you didn't deserve to win because you didn't win the game. Now, are there questionable calls in every game? Absolutely. Will I get angry if my team doesn't get a call that goes its way? Yes, I do. I'm a fan. It's what fans do. But afterwards, I can sit back and be like, okay, that wasn't the reason they lost. And I think it's important to keep in mind, the reason Oklahoma lost was not because of those penalties. Did they play a factor? Yes, but they're not the main reason. Oklahoma had its chances to pull the game away. They had their chances of holding the lead, and they couldn't do it. Oklahoma State took advantage of those miscues, and they won in the end. Now we got Oklahoma State versus Baylor in the Big 12 Championship because of it. The first conference championship game I'm going to be picking is Utah versus Oregon, and truthfully, I could see this game going to either team. This is not one that I think, yeah, Oregon's going to win hands down. Yeah, Utah's going to win hands down, because we saw these two teams play, and Utah beat them up pretty badly. I would say they destroyed Oregon. That being said, I don't think that's the Oregon team we're going to see Friday night against Utah. I think Utah has a great program. Kyle Whittingham has built it really from the bottom up from when he took over. And Mario Cristobal has done a great job at Oregon. I think we see a bit more of Oregon come out. I think we see them pull this one out. I expect it to be a close game. I wouldn't be surprised if this was tied up at halftime. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a final game-winning drive that resulted in a touchdown or field goal, because I think both teams are very good. I think Oregon just has the better talent, so I'm going to pick them. I think they have the number one pick in Kayvon Thibodeau. I think they will pull it out. Utah will keep it close, but overall, I think Oregon's just a better team and will win it. This is the one non-Power 5 conference game I'm going to pick this week, and that's Houston-Cincinnati. Now, why am I going to pick this game? Well, it's simple. Cincinnati has a shot to make college football playoffs, which would be the first group of 5 team to do so. Now, do I think they will win a game in the college football playoffs? I don't know yet. I'd have to see who they'd match up against, see how it goes, because Desmond Ridder can play some good football, and he's one of the better quarterbacks in college football as of right now. So you take that into account. I do expect Cincinnati to handle Houston. This is not a shot against Houston. I just don't think they're on the level of Cincinnati. Both these teams will be joining the Big 12 here soon, so maybe after they get a bit Big 12 recruiting push, they will be on par, but right now I think Cincinnati is the top team. And this also brings into question Luke Fickell. Is he going to stay at Cincinnati long-term or not? I think if they win this game and make college football playoffs, he's going to be staying there long-term, and he's going to be building Cincinnati to the point their annual team we talked about making the playoffs. Now let's talk about the Big 12 title game between Baylor and Oklahoma State. Now, truthfully, I think Oklahoma State's going to win this game flat out. I think they are the best team in the Big 12 this year, and I think they're just better than Baylor right now. Oklahoma State nearly went undefeated by only having a 3-point loss to Iowa State. This team has a shot to make college football playoffs. I expect them to do so. That being said, Baylor's not going to lie down and play dead. Dave Aranda is a great coach who I think will get this team to get up and play. I expect to be close at halftime, but I expect the Pokes to pull it out closer to the end, win by 2 possessions. I think Spencer Sanders is going to be playing another big-time game here soon for Oklahoma State, and this time for the college football playoffs. Now I'd like to talk about the ACC Championship Game. And if you like points, tune into this one. If you want defensive slugfest, do not tune into this one. This is going to be points, 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 points. Pickett and Hartman are going to go head-to-head. There's going to be a lot of passing yards. There's going to be a lot of points. It's going to be what you'd expect for a Big 12 shootout, not an ACC shootout. But if you told me before the season that we were going to get Wake Forest versus Pitt in the ACC Conference Championship game, I would have told you we're crazy. Not even the fact that Clemson's not in it, the fact that it's Wake Forest and Pitt. I would have thought before the season it was going to be Clemson versus North Carolina. I feel like that would be 2 safe bets. It did not turn out that way. Now, that being said, who do I think is going to win this game? I think Pitt's going to win because I like Pickett more than Hartman. Now, do I think that I'm 100% certain that's how it's going to go? No. Pitt's defense has not been good this year. Wake Forest defense has had its moments sometimes, but it's mostly not been that great. I mean, there have been a lot of shootouts, and I expect this game to be the exact same. I expect Hartman and Pittman to put up a lot of points, very few rushing yards, a lot of throwing yards. This is going to be an air raid. Take cover. It's going to be a fun game to watch. Now let's talk about the Big Ten title game, and I wish I could tell you I'm excited for this game, that I'm excited for Iowa versus Michigan, but I'd be lying to you if I did say that. Truthfully, I don't expect to watch much of this game at all. And if it is close at all, if it's like 7-3 at halftime, it's going to be a dominant 7-3 favoring Michigan. I don't think Iowa has a chance this game. I think Michigan's going to win it no matter what. Every scenario, minus the entire team catching COVID and they have to forfeit, I think Michigan's going to beat Iowa. I think Iowa is helped out by being a weaker side of the conference. There you don't have to deal with Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State, Michigan. And they did beat Penn State this year, yes, but that was after Sean Clifford got hurt. Iowa barely beat a backup quarterback. I don't think Michigan's going to have many issues with this Iowa team. I think it's going to be a dominant victory for Michigan. Now for the main event, Alabama versus Georgia. Who's going to win? Georgia's going to win. This is not the same old Alabama team that can just beat anybody. I don't believe that. I believe Alabama has the best quarterback in college football. I believe Alabama next year is terrifying, but this year, they're human. And I don't think they can score many points on this Georgia team. I think Georgia's defense is too good. I think Georgia's offense will score enough points to beat Alabama. Georgia's offense does not scare me, but they have a very good running attack and a very, very good defense. You could even say one of the best defenses in college football history, and you would have a really strong case. Georgia should beat Alabama, and you can say, well, only one Nick Saban assistant has ever beat him. That was Jimbo Fisher this year. Yeah, well, it's about to be 2 because I don't see many ways for Alabama to win. Georgia's just too good defensively. Alabama would need a lot of turnovers, and they'd have to score in the red zone. Those 2 things are not easy to do against Georgia. But I do think Georgia wins, and I do think they go on to the college football playoffs as the 1 seed. Now, let's finish up this podcast with a little happiness. Who do I think is going to make the college football playoffs? Who are my top 4 teams? Well, I'm going to start off at number 1. Because if you were listening, you know who I picked this week. So let's just start with 1. Number 1, Georgia. They have been the best team this year. They're going to enter it undefeated. I think they are the heavy favorites to win the NCAA championship, which pains me as a Gator fan, but great job, Kirby Smart. I thought you were overrated. I thought Georgia was highly overrated entering the year, and they have proved me wrong. So, congrats to Georgia. They should be the number 1 seed if they remain undefeated, which I do think they will. Number 2, I think you have to go with Michigan. Now, I did debate myself a bit if I'd put Michigan or my number 3 team at 2, but I think you have to give it to the Power 5 school, if that kind of gives away who my 3 is. I think Michigan had a great win against Ohio State. I think it's a great win. They've had a very good season. I expect them to beat Iowa pretty handily. Do I know if they beat the number 3 team this year? Well, I don't know for certain. That's going to be something I'd have to think about a lot more. But as we sit right now, I feel confident saying they're the second best team in college football. Number 3, the Cincinnati Bearcats. This is where I'm going to have to eat my words, because during the UCF run, I was like, you can't put a group of 5 team in the college football playoffs. It's stupid. You can't do it. Blah, blah, blah. And now watching Cincinnati, I think they deserve it. I think there's an argument they've been the second best team in college football this year. They're the only other undefeated team, really. So, do I think it's going to be Georgia versus Cincinnati in the finals? I don't know for certain. But if Cincinnati handles their business on Saturday and they beat Houston, I can't find a reason to not put them in here. Could the committee? Absolutely. But for me personally, Cincinnati deserves to be in the college football playoffs. Whether that's as a 2, 3, 1, or 4 seed, they should at least get the shot to be in it. And my number 4 seed, and truthfully, I don't know who this is going to go to, because based off my predictions, I could still see the committee giving Alabama the nod. If they beat Georgia, if they play Georgia close, I could see them being like, well, it's Alabama, let's get them in there. But I just can't put a 2-loss team that does not have a conference title in it. If they had a conference title, I'd be willing to hear the argument. But as of right now, I can't. Because I think the number 4 team should be Oklahoma State. I think they are a great team. A great defense. And, hey, the rumor is Florida's going to be pursuing their defensive coordinator. I don't know what's going to happen there. As a Gator fan, I love the sound of it. But right now, I don't see why you would leave this Pokes team. Because I think Oklahoma State has a shot to make the college football playoffs. And I think they will be in it. Do I think they have a shot against Georgia? Time will tell. I really don't know. But this is a great potential for Oklahoma State as a program in the Big 12, especially after losing Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC. You immediately get Oklahoma State in there, which is huge. Because now you have a new top team. Now, who are the other teams that will have a shot? I've already said Alabama. They will have a shot because of name value, Nick Saban, and the fact they've won so many. The other team, Notre Dame. And even though I do not think they deserve it, I can see the committee putting them in there because they are a name team. The only other team that really has a shot to make it, in my opinion, would be Baylor. And they need a lot of things to go their way. I think the committee would put in Notre Dame over them, even though I'd heavily disagree with that. But if Baylor were to win, and they would have to have a lot of help, they'd have to beat Oklahoma State, they'd have to see Alabama get crushed, but they'd also have to beat Oklahoma State pretty handily, and I just don't see that happening. But those are overall the teams I think will make it in Georgia, Michigan, Cincinnati, and Oklahoma State, and the 3 teams that I could see having a shot being placed in it by the committee in Alabama, Notre Dame, and Baylor. Now, who do I think is going to win it? Well, you'll have to tune in to see when that's actually announced. But for now, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. And if you're new, hit the subscribe button. And if you like this, hit the like button. And if you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. Tell me in the comments what you didn't like, and we can have a little debate back and forth. But as for now, see you later.